If you're a guy watching this video and you want to bulk, you want to gain weight and you want to put on muscle, what you need to be doing to ensure that that happens and that you're not wasting time is that you train hard. You need to ensure that you're training hard enough, because if you're not, you're simply wasting your time. You're not getting the maximum output out of what you're doing, and yeah, your rate of progression is going to be very slow. So in this video, I just want to quickly go over with you guys 3 factors that you can base your training off to deter whether you're training hard enough or if you're just simply wasting your time. And you need to stop being a pussy, get out your comfort zone, and you need to put yourself through it, okay? So without further ado, before I get into this video, I just want to briefly introduce myself to you guys. So my name is Ryan, I'm a 19-year-old and I've undergone a physical and mental transformation over the past 3.5 years, taking myself from looking like this in 2021 to looking like this in 2024, gaining 25 kilos over the span of 3.5 years. But without further ado, let's just get into this video. Enough of the yapping, let's get on with it. So the first thing that I want to go over is yeah, as I said, if you're not training properly, then you're simply not going to grow as much muscle as you want, because you're not going to be stimulating your muscle enough. Therefore you're not going to be breaking down the muscle fibers. Therefore you're not giving the muscles a chance to recover bigger and stronger than they were before, right? So making sure you're training hard is absolutely crucial towards muscle growth, and I'm assuming that's why you're watching this video. So let's get into the 3 things that I want to go into with you guys to deter whether you are training properly or not. So first of all, the first thing that you should look out for is DOMS. And if you don't know what DOMS stand for, it stands for delayed onset muscle soreness. And this is basically the soreness you get in your muscles 24 to 72 hours after you train. So 1 to 3 days after you train a muscle, you'd feel soreness in your muscle. And that's obviously because you've trained hard enough. You've put your body through what it needs to be put through, and as a consequence, whilst it's adapting, whilst it's recovering to get bigger and stronger in order to prepare and be able to tolerate more in the future, you have a side effect called DOMS, which is, you know, your muscle soreness you get after you train. And if you don't have muscle soreness, so if you don't have muscle pain, if you don't have tenderness about your muscles, and if you don't feel fatigued, if your muscles don't feel fatigued, and you're like, you know, for example, if you train legs, if you do a leg day and the next day or the next 2 days or the next 3 days you don't feel any muscle soreness, and you're like, oh, you know what, I could do another leg day if I wanted to, then you simply haven't trained hard enough, my friend. You've got to feel pain and stiffness in the muscle. You know, you've got to feel tender. So things to look out for to actually deter whether you've got DOMS, you know, your muscle pain, as I said, the stiffness and the muscle stiffness, and obviously whether you're feeling tender or not, and whether the muscle is vulnerable. For example, I trained legs on Saturday and I actually ended up throwing up after the session, and it's now Monday. Yes, now Monday, and my quads, if I poke them, they are still in a lot of pain, right? So that's what you've got to be looking out for. I just came back from a chest session, and tomorrow and, you know, 2 days after, I'm expecting my chest to be hurting, right? So that's what you've got to be looking out for. And if you don't get DOMS in your muscles, so if you don't have delayed onset muscle soreness 24 to 72 hours after you train that muscle, then you need to train harder. You need to push yourself more. And I guarantee you, you had more reps in the tank. You left the gym knowing you could have done one more rep on, you know, bicep curls if you're doing arms, for example. You know you have one more rep on the leg press if you did legs, for example, okay? So you've got to be pushing your limits, and if you don't have DOMS, that is a sign that you need to do more and that you are capable of doing more. And, you know, it's just your mentality holding you back, nothing else, okay? So that's the first thing that I wanted to go into. And the second way you're going to deter whether you're training hard enough or you're not is your level of fatigue. If you're not fatigued by the end of your session, or if you don't feel completely fucked after doing your set, for example, if you don't feel absolutely destroyed after a set of leg press, for example, as I said, when I trained legs on Saturday, I did one set of leg press. That's all it took me, right? I did 6 plates per side on a leg press, because to be honest, my leg press is quite light. For 15 reps, and after it I was sitting on the floor for about 5 minutes. I couldn't even tense my quad properly because there was so much blood in there, and I was completely spinning. When it came to me trying to, I was on the floor for 5 minutes, right, and then I got up and then I tried to take the plates off the machine, and then I sort of felt myself, you know, I was going to be sick, so I rushed up to the toilet, and you know, I did the deed. I was sick, right? And I'm not saying you have to go that far, but if you don't feel like, um, for example, if you feel like you could have given one more rep on your in your set, for example, and if you don't feel like you need a few minutes break because you know, because you're that fucked, then in my opinion and overall, you're not training hard enough. If you do a set of incline dumbbell chest press and you feel like you a heavy one, and you feel like you could go again after 30 seconds, then you haven't fatigued your muscle properly, and you haven't fatigued properly, and you haven't given it your all, right? And this is extremely important because the more you fatigue your muscles, the more you recruit muscle fibers. Therefore, you can, you know, your muscle fibers will micro tear during the set, right? And obviously that is crucial to muscle growth because that is a crucial stage in muscular hypertrophy. When the micro tears, when the muscle fibers micro tear and they break down, they then end up recovering bigger and stronger in order to tolerate more in the future. And that is how muscles grow. And if you're not even fatiguing your muscle in the first place, then you're not going to recruit muscle fibers, and you're not going to be able to micro tear your muscles, micro tear the muscle fibers properly. Therefore, they can't recover and grow bigger and stronger because you haven't done enough, right? If at the end of the set, if you feel like, oh, I could have squeezed one more, then you're simply not doing enough. And a sign that, you know, a good sign to look out for to tell whether you're actually fatiguing yourself enough is towards the end of the set, the reps get extremely difficult. They get brutal. They get painful. You feel the muscle burning. They're challenging, and you may want your friend to be spotting you in order to help you get through the rep if you actually can't get it up. That's what you've got to be looking for, okay? And another thing you've got to remember as well, that I like to remember, is that a good set is never pretty, alright? You should never be looking your best when you're meant to be pushing hard. If you're looking your best and you say you're training to failure, and you haven't got, and you're not putting on any stupid faces, then in my opinion, you're not training hard enough. So looking out for your level of fatigue. If you finish a set and you feel like you could have done one more, and if after a session you don't feel completely fucked, then you haven't done enough, and you know you're capable of more, right? So that's another thing to look out for. So obviously your DOMs after the session, and then how you feel during the session and after you finish a heavy set, for example, or if you go to failure, for example, and you feel like you could have done one more, then you clearly haven't gone to failure, and you clearly haven't done what you are actually capable of, okay? So it's all about maximizing output. It's all about doing, literally putting all of your energy into every single set. That's what it's all about. So that's the second thing you need to look out for. And the third and final thing that you need to look out for is whether progressive overload is happening or not. And this is also so important to deter whether you're actually doing things properly, and whether you're actually progressing, and whether you're actually growing muscle and increasing strength, which is really important, because if you're not, then you're not getting anywhere, right? If you can lift heavier, if you can train harder at a higher intensity, if you're, you know, if you're doing one more rep or two more reps than you did last week with the same weight on a certain exercise, for example, then things are progressing. You're doing what's needed to be done. And if you don't necessarily know what progressive overload is, it's all about slowly increasing and slowly increasing the rate at which you do things. So, for example, slowly increasing the weight of an exercise when it feels easy, for example, slowly increasing the intensity, the more experience you get and the more you can handle. And obviously, the reps, you know, beating your set last week by 1 rep or 2 reps. If you're not doing any of those things, and if you're staying the same, and if you're training the same, then you're going to stay the same. You're not going to be making any progression. And a sign that progressive overload is happening, as I said, you're lifting heavier, your weights are going up, you're training more intense, and you can obviously complete more reps than the week or 2 weeks prior, right? And a good sign that your, you know, progressive overload isn't happening is if you're plateauing. And if you don't know what a plateau is, it's basically when you stay the same. You don't go up, you don't go down, you literally stay the same in a constant line, and you're not making any progression and you're not regressing. You may regress, but a plateau is basically where you just stay constant and you're not changing, right? So you've got to make sure you're pushing yourself. You've got to make sure you're getting out your comfort zone, because if you're not progressively overloading, if you're not lifting heavier weight if you're not lifting weight that you've never lifted before, I get that it's intimidating. And, you know, I'm going through my bulking phase right now. I'm almost back at my heaviest that I've ever been, right? and I'm lifting heavier weight than I ever have right now. And I get how intimidating it is. I get how you feel resistance, and I get how there's a mental block between that. But you just got to push out your comfort zone, okay? You've got to be training more intense. Whether you feel shit or not, you've got to remember that the pain is temporary and the pain only lasts in the moment. And if you put yourself through the pain in the moment, then 2 hours down the line, you're going to feel great because you've done what's needed to be done in order to grow muscle and in order to progress. And most importantly, you have trained hard enough. So they're the three things you've got to be looking out for. If your muscles just aren't sore a couple days after, then, and you haven't got DOMs, then you're not training hard enough. If you're not fatiguing yourself properly in the session, for example, if you feel like you could go again after the set, straight away, then you clearly haven't done enough. If you feel like you have one more rep in the tank after the set, then you clearly haven't done enough. If you're leaving the gym feeling energized still, obviously you feel, you've done something good for yourself. But if the muscle group that you have just trained doesn't feel a bit messed up, then you aren't fatiguing yourself properly in the gym and you're not training hard enough. And most importantly, if your weights aren't going up, if your intensity isn't increasing, if your reps are staying the same, and you're not beating what you were doing last week or 2 weeks ago, and you're staying at a plateau and nothing's progressing, then you are simply not training hard enough. So they're three things that you should be mainly looking out for, in my opinion. They're really good at deterring whether you're actually training hard enough or not. And be honest with yourself. Have a look in the mirror. Have a reflection with yourself. Have a brutally honest reflection, and just be honest with yourself. Are you training hard enough or not? Do you need to, do you need to increase the intensity a little bit? Do you need to actually just get that mindset of, I don't want to have anything in the tank after the set? Do these little evaluations with yourself. Always look at constantly improving, because, there's always room for improvement in the gym, right? So this is the end of the video. I hope you guys have enjoyed and you've learned something about how you're going to deter whether you're training hard enough or not. And this is absolutely crucial if you want to bulk and if you actually want to gain weight and muscle this winter. You don't want to get to the summer and you're wasting your time because you're not training hard enough, right? So these are three things to look out for. So whether you've got DOMs after a session, whether you feel fucked after a set and when you leave the gym, and whether progressive overload is happening or not. So if the weight is going up, your reps are going up, and your intensity is going up. So if you guys have enjoyed this video, then I'll really appreciate it if you could just leave a like and a comment as well. Comment any video ideas, comment any feedback, what you want to see, what you don't necessarily want to see, right? Give me anything. I'm open to anything. And obviously hit the big red button below. I don't know if it's red. Yeah, it is. Because that really helps me out, and the algorithm will recommend me to you more. And that is good because, I upload every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So, you want to stay tapped in, right? So, without further ado, I will see you guys in the next video.